Imagine losing 2 weeks of your life every single month to a darkness you can't control. When your mood swings become a debilitating battle, you might be dealing with more than just PMS. You could be facing premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I've seen women suffer for a decade misdiagnosed, but by tracking 3 specific biological triggers, you can identify the difference between hormonal shifts and a life altering reality that requires urgent attention. Time equals sign 800 MS. Grab a glass of water, get comfortable, and let's look at why this happens and what you can do about it. First, we need to acknowledge that for years, this condition was pushed into the shadows. It is not in your head, and it is certainly not just being overly sensitive. We are talking about a physiological response to the natural hormonal drop of your cycle, but with a neurological hypersensitivity that turns that drop into a storm. Let's start with the first way to know if what you're dealing with is actually PMDD. It comes down to the predictability of the shift. With typical hormonal fluctuations, you might feel a bit tired, crave some chocolate, or feel a little bloated for a day or two. But with PMDD, the symptoms appear in the luteal phase, the time after ovulation and before your period starts. And they vanish almost instantly once bleeding begins. It's like a light switch. You feel deep, crushing hopelessness, intense irritability, or even panic attacks for 2 weeks. And then, as if by magic, you wake up on day 1 of your period and feel like yourself again. That sudden, total resolution of symptoms is the biggest red flag. If your mood struggles are constant or unpredictable, that's different. But if you can set your watch by the moment your mental health collapses and the moment it resets, that is the hallmark of this disorder. Think about that for a second. It's not a personality flaw. It's a timing issue. If you want to start tracking this properly, stop using a standard period app that only marks when your flow starts. You need a daily symptom journal where you track your mood on a scale of 1 to 10 every single day for at least 3 months. You'll likely see a jagged mountain range on your chart that peaks right before you bleed. Now, here's where it gets more nuanced. The second point you need to understand is the severity index. Many people don't realize that standard PMS is defined by physical discomfort, while PMDD is defined by severe emotional and behavioral distress. We're talking about symptoms that significantly interfere with your work, your relationships, and your ability to function. Are you calling out of work consistently? Are you starting arguments that feel completely out of character? I remember a case study from a researcher at the University of California, San Francisco, involving a woman named Elena. For years, she told her primary care physician that she felt suicidal every month, and he kept offering her antidepressants for a generic diagnosis of generalized anxiety. It wasn't until she brought in her symptom log and showed that she was completely symptom-free for the other 2 weeks of the month that they realized this was PMDD. The antidepressants for general anxiety didn't help because they weren't addressing the specific hormonal trigger. If you're getting value out of this breakdown, hit subscribe. I put out deep dive research like this every single week. If this is finally making those puzzle pieces click for you, a quick subscribe goes a long way in helping me reach others who are still looking for these answers. Okay, now, ready for the one I've been saving. This is the third method, and honestly, it's the one that most doctors miss entirely because they aren't trained in the intricacies of neurotransmitter sensitivity. The secret is in the relationship between your reproductive hormones and the GABA receptor in your brain. For most people, when the hormone allopregnanolone, which is a breakdown product of progesterone, increases during the luteal phase, it binds to the GABA receptor to produce a calming effect. It's why you feel sleepy or relaxed toward the end of your cycle. But for women with PMDD, the brain becomes hypersensitive to this chemical. Instead of producing a calm, soothing effect, the process actually triggers a stress response in the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that processes fear and anxiety. Think about that. Your brain is literally taking a calming chemical and misreading it as a danger signal. This is why a simple blood test won't diagnose PMDD. Your hormone levels can look perfectly normal on a lab report because the problem isn't the amount of hormone you have. It's how your brain decides to interpret that hormone. That revelation is the holy grail of understanding why you felt so misunderstood for so long. Once you understand that, you can have a much more informed conversation with a psychiatrist or an endocrinologist. You aren't asking for something for anxiety, you're asking for support in modulating that specific neurological response. Some people find that specific low-dose selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors taken only during the luteal phase, known as luteal phase dosing, can actually stop the cycle of symptoms before they start. That is a game changer. It's not about fixing a broken brain, it's about providing the right support for a brain that is simply hypersensitive to natural cycles. Let that sink in for a moment. If you've spent years feeling like you were losing your mind, realizing that this is a documented, research backed neurological phenomenon is often the biggest step toward relief. You aren't crazy. You aren't broken. You are navigating a physiological reality that is unfortunately still poorly understood by much of the medical community. So there you go. 3 real ways to understand PMDD: the predictability of the timing, the emotional severity compared to physical symptoms, and the deep neurological disconnect between your hormones and your brain chemistry. That last one alone changes the conversation entirely. If you got value from this, please share it with someone who might be struggling and feeling just as lost as you were. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the hidden factors that affect our health, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had a doctor look at you like you were making things up. Knowing we aren't alone in this is half the battle. I'll see you in the next one.